Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Rising Tide Leadership Podcast, Identity and Influence. I'm here again with Dr. Lem. Dr. Lem, what up?
What's going on, man? It's always good to sit with you. Yeah, man.
You've been taking us through a bunch of leadership articles.
Yeah.
Today, we're talking about leadership lesson 39, not just leadership. Love the title. Why don't you give us a background?
Yeah, again, these are lessons that I'm personally learning in my leadership journey, and I've just been writing about it and processing through it, evaluating and reflecting on my leadership practice. And these are the lessons that come out of that reflection and evaluation on my end. And, again, these are lessons that I am learning and I continue to learn. And this lesson kind of comes out of whenever I take a leadership class or read a leadership book, it just makes it sound like it's all leadership. And in a certain sense, it is all about leadership and how you lead in different areas, but it's not just leadership, especially in particular for this article. It's about the startup setting. When you're in a startup, you might be the leader and you might be leading, but then you're also doing the marketing, you're also doing the web design, you're doing all of the things as well. And so it's just understanding, again, it's just it's just ongoing conversation that we're having about really knowing yourself, really understanding your gifts and your talents and your leadership ability and staying within your lane. And knowing that in certain settings that you have to do more than just what you have on your job description.
Yeah, there is a job description and then there's job responsibilities.
That's
A
it.
lot of times they're completely different. And so when I talk to young people, I'll say, make sure you ask that question. What are the job responsibilities? And whoever's hiring you, whoever's on that HR team, they should understand that question and they should have a good answer for it.
Yeah, for sure.
And here's my first question. Why do you believe that leadership is the magic ingredient oftentimes when it comes to success? And what are the misconceptions?
So I think leadership is for sure needed, and it's just a piece of the puzzle, but I think it's a big piece of the puzzle. You know how typically when you're working on puzzle, you work the corners and the edges, and leadership kind of give you the boundaries and the parameters for which you can do things. And it's definitely the ingredient for success. But I think the misconception is when you read about leadership and you just think, well, all I need is leadership. You kind of miss out on all of the other things that you're gonna need to do when you're leading an organization. When you were talking earlier about the job description, there's the job description of things you got to do, and then there's all the other things that are kind of not on the job description that you also need to do, but it's just not written down. One time I went to one of my, a guy that I was working for, one of my bosses, and I said, "You guys have a clear organizational chart of positions, right? And it's clear that this person reports to this person, and these are the direct reports. This is the up lead." And they had all of the positions mapped out. But after being there for a couple of days, I went up to my boss and I said, "Hey, you have an org chart of positions, but the org chart of power is different. And it's the stuff it's the cultural stuff. It's the stuff underneath and being able to navigate, relationally some of those things. Yeah, it definitely helps you with your leadership. It's not just leadership."
Yeah, in the article, you talk a lot about one of your mentors' perspectives. And so based on his perspective or what you've taken away from it, what makes leadership one part of the equation in a startup environment?
Yeah, when I asked this mentor about a startup environment, I was expecting him to just talk about leadership the entire time, and in a startup environment, whether you're the leader or you're just a member of the startup team, you'll need to wear multiple hats. In a startup, everyone does multiple things, and even a small nonprofit or a small university. I was a professor at a college, but then I had a full-time gig as a professor at the college, but then I also had a quarter-time director position in the student life area, and there were 1,000 students at this college. And so even I guess that's a small college, but even in a small nonprofit, small colleges, you just kind of end up doing multiple things and wearing multiple hats. And I think the leadership really helps you. Leadership guides you in those things, but just know in a startup environment, you're going to be doing multiple things.
What are some of the common pitfalls that leaders face when they try to take on too many of those roles? Because
And
obviously things need to get done. As leaders,
yeah,
we're usually go-getters. So
yeah.
what is your advice to somebody on how to navigate that?
I think the main one is that you miss things if you try to do too many things. No one can be that good at everything. It's just not possible. And then you can overwhelm yourself. And then what happens when you overwhelm yourself is you then end up overwhelming the team. And then things just don't get done. And so being clear about objectives, being clear about the roles, and then hiring a team to kind of help you, like that's what's gonna that's what's gonna make the difference.
One of the things I love to tell people is, look, I'm only good at a couple things. I can do a couple things really well. The rest of
Right.
it, I need to give away. In fact, John
Yeah,
Maxwell
absolutely.
talks about that. He says, look, find the one thing. What are you
Yeah,
brought in to do? Delegate everything else. Not offload it, but delegate it.
right,
So why do you think that so
right,
many leaders feel like they have to do it all? Because we already know you're not good at everything, but you're making
right.
decisions like you are.
Yeah. Well, people look up to you as the leader. And I think that's part of the reason why I wrote the article is because it's not just about the leader and it's not just about leadership. It's about the team and developing the team and empowering the team. And then as we've kind of talked about in some other, episodes, like, when you can lean on the team for their skills and their strengths, and when you can hire as a leader, when you can hire team members that kind of help you in your weaknesses and in your gaps, like that makes you a much better leader. It makes for a much stronger team.
One of the things that I hate most about leadership is the halo effect. Because you're good at
Mm,
one thing, people think
right,
that you're just automatically good at everything, or even worse, because you're good at one thing, you think you're good at everything.
right.
So, so I guess my last follow-up question on that is, how do you make sure that you understand that you're not good at everything? Because some people just refuse to give up on it. And they let people stroke their ego and they say, well, maybe I am
Yeah,
good at everything.
yeah, exactly. That stuff happens. I think one of the ways that leaders can figure that out is to really know yourself. And one of the ways that you can do that is you can hire uh, Mo here for a disc assessment. That's going to help you. You know, if you
Absolutely.
know if you know your main style of interacting with people, your main way of communicating with people, if you know your preference in your leadership, you'll find that you'll find that this is where I fit, and then I need to find other people that walk alongside me and put them on the team. If you take the disc, typically leaders of the organization tend to be visionaries and activators. They tend to do stuff. And if you are a D or an I on your disc assessment, yeah, you're going to need S's and C's to kind of help you figure that out. And so really understanding like your leadership style and your personality really gives you an understanding of who you need to hire.
Yeah, bottom line leaders, you need to hire the right people. You're not good at everything.
Yep.
Figure out what you're good at, delegate everything else. How's
Yep.
that?
Yeah, that's good.
Hey, so let's talk about building effective teams. How can leaders identify gaps in their own skills, what we were just talking about, and build teams to complement those areas?
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to reiterate that point. Like you really need to know who you are. You really need to know what the gaps are in your leadership. The disc helps. Myers-Briggs will help you. Strengths finders, I know that's a big tool that you use. Really, really helps you. And yeah, focusing on your development and focusing on your leadership ability and knowing your leadership ability helps you to figure out what your gaps are. Like I said, if you're leading an organization, you tend to be a D or an I, and you need S's and C's to make stuff work. In a startup setting though, you might be the leader and you might be a D or an I, but all the S and C stuff might still needs to get done, in order to be compliant with the law, in order to get stuff out there. And I definitely have my limits and I know what my limits are. Um, and then for the things that I can't do, I just outsource, you know. like especially in that startup environment.
Yeah, so collaboration is really important within a team setting. So why is it crucial for leaders to foster trust and collaboration within their teams to achieve not just short-term success, but long-term success?
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Trust is key because one, you can't do it all. And then trust also helps you to communicate, and communicate well because there's going to be mistakes along the way, right? Especially in a startup environment, things will come up that you can't plan for. And to be able to communicate that and to trust the members of your team and the people that you've done, you're doing the startup with, like having those relationships will help you in communication. It'll help you with leadership. It'll help you with objectives and getting stuff done.
What makes relational leadership so impactful? And how can leaders intentionally develop connections with the people that report to them?
That's a great question, man. One of the ways that I want to answer that question is you need to go back to the episode that we did on power and listen to our episode on power and understand the relational power that you can have, and the relational power that you can wield in leadership. It brings people along. And then go back to our episode on management versus leadership. And like you said, leadership is about people and management is about process. And so if you're going to lead and you're going to lead people, that relational component is going to be pretty key. And so, not a shout out, but it's a call back to previous episodes that we've already recorded. So go listen to the one on power and go listen to the one on management and leadership. That gives you insight into, um, the importance of relational leadership.
When I do assessments with leaders, whether it's top management, middle management, or the team that is doing the day to day, like you said, you can fall in one of two categories for the most part: task oriented or people
Right?
oriented.
Yep.
Okay. So, what advice would you give to leaders who struggle to balance relational and task focused leadership?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. But like you're saying, task focus tends to be the management side of things, and that relational side is more that leadership. Again, listen to our podcast on management versus leadership, and as the leader, do the leadership things. As a manager, do the management things. Then focus on key relationships that help you in your leadership. Now, something that one of my mentors told me years ago is, you know, um, you're going to need to learn how to be in relationships with all kinds of people. You can't just be in relationship with the people that you get along with or the ones that are fun. There's gonna be, especially in a larger organization, there's gonna be people that you may not want to be in relationship with. And as a leader, you're still gonna need to learn how to lead them relationally and lead them effectively in that situation. I think leaders that struggle balancing relational or task focused things, um, I think something that really will help is a good strategic plan. If you have clear strategic plan, these are the objectives, these are the goals, these are the values that drive the objectives. Like everything is clear. And so if you're struggling to balance the relational with the task, then I think one of the first things you need to do is to get clear on the strategic plan and the objectives. Because once those things are laid out, then you know what to do. You're doing this and everyone's going after these objectives and these goals. And so I think somebody struggling with that might might not have a good plan. And then the other side of that coin, I think, is you just may not have a good team member, or you may not be the right person for that team. That's also another, characteristic of this thing. If you're struggling to balance some of those relational and task focused things, maybe you got the wrong team member. Those are also a possibility.
I
Speaking
rem-
from experience, man.
yeah, I remember you talking in an earlier episode about one of both of our favorite books by Jim Collins, Good to Great.
Yeah.
And you need to get the right people on the bus, and then you need to
Right.
rearrange the seats and make sure they're in the right seats
Right seats.
on the
Right.
bus. If you have an empty seat and you don't have somebody who can fill that seat, it's going to affect the way that you do business.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
can't just throw the wrong person in the right seat. That's
Uh-huh.
disastrous. And
Mhm.
obviously, Jim Collins says, don't worry about the seats. They're all empty. Just get good
Right.
people then you can find out what seat
Then
they
you can
should be
figure it
in.
out. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you don't have somebody for a specific seat and there's
Yeah.
all your other leaders are doing other things, other tasks,
Yeah.
you need to find that person to fill that gap. But what I hear you saying is if you don't even know what that gap is,
Right.
then you're not going to be able to fill it.
That Jim Collins and That Good to Great book is such a key book. If you guys haven't listened or read it, you need to get your hands on it and read it.
Yeah, it really is a game changer to put Good to Great on your reading list for this year. So
Absolutely.
once we get people on the bus, once we get them in the right seats, let's talk about how does delegation play a role in balancing leadership responsibilities with the need to manage different areas of an organization.
Right. No, like you said, leaders need to lead. And you said that they don't like to give up power and control. I think if you understand that delegating has to do with tasks and then you hold on to the responsibility. Actually, our last episode talked about, we did an episode on the responsibility and, the buck stopping here. And if you're the leader, don't ever give up responsibility, but you can delegate tasks. Don't ever delegate your power, your control, or your responsibility. That's just wussing out on your leadership. Delegating helps you to maintain power and control, right? And maintain the responsibility when you're delegating tasks, right? Not responsibility.
So leaders, what you should be understanding and hearing Dr. Lim say is stop doing so much and do the things that matter. If you're busy, that's not impressive.
Right.
Busy shows me that you don't know how to manage your
Yeah.
priorities.
Yeah. That you're not clear.
That you're not clear. So for people who have trouble with delegating, what are
Yeah.
some practical steps that they can take to empower their team so that those members can effectively take those delegations
Yeah.
and make an impact on the company?
Yeah. That clarity, I think, comes from something we mentioned earlier, having a strategic plan, having your plan laid out, the objectives laid out clearly, um, the compelling vision that drives the values that drive the objectives. But then you bring the team on in light of that, And so I think having the strategic plan really helps with delegating because then people know this is what we're about. This is what the organization is about. And then this is my role, right? And then you can delegate the task and empower that team to do the work. And then you could do the work.
So I need to make a confession. I don't have all the answers. And sometimes a leader's team will expect the leader to have all the answers.
Yeah.
So why is it important for leaders to recognize that they don't need to have all the answers?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great insight, man. You can't grow as an organization and you can't grow your team if you think you have all the answers. You'll burn people out. You'll burn yourself out as a leader thinking that you have all the answers. One of the common threads through our episodes is the humility as a leader that you need in order to lead effectively. And the humility allows you to, first of all, not have all the answers, but then to ask your team members. And again, if you're in a relationship with team members, you would have created that culture where they can give their feedback. Also, a secure leader doesn't need to have all the answers. And then they can lead through that situation because, they're not getting in their own way.
And that's a good word. I
Yeah,
think
man.
we all need to hear that. Because leadership really is a collaborative effort.
Well,
And as soon as leaders understand that
yeah.
if there's nobody there, you're not leading anything. Or as my Latin teacher in high school, Mizzucato, used to say, if you think you're leading, but nobody's following, you're just
You're
taking a
just
walk.
taking a walk. Yeah, man.
That
Yeah.
was great. That was one of her favorite
Yeah.
sayings. And that was from
Yeah.
my Latin teacher. I learned more leadership skills
Yeah.
and traits from her than I think I did
Right.
from most of my teachers because she took an interest. So my
Right.
first question regarding collaboration within leadership is how can leaders shift their mindset from doing it all to fostering collaboration and shared success?
There's that saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you build a team. You take people with you. And like you were saying, leadership is about people. So if you're just doing it alone, like you're just going out on a walk, and you're not leading, right? If you are able to build a team and you get clear on your role and you empower the team, you can definitely foster that collaboration and shared success for sure. But again, it takes security, it takes humility, it takes relational capability on the leader's part in order to bring people along. You can definitely go farther with.
So, what's the takeaway for leaders who want to create environments for their teams to thrive?
You're going to create the environment that you yourself have experienced, that you yourself can create. And so the limits are going to be yourself, right? But like we keep talking about, having the humility, having the security in yourself to ask questions and to build the team and to give it away. Yeah, it's all level 5 leadership stuff that we're talking about, right? Being able to build people up and not be so selfish and build yourself up, but really care about the organization and the organization going far. Yeah, I mean, that's not just one takeaway, but the takeaway is it really depends on the leader. Everything rises and falls on the leader.
What advice would you offer to a leader feeling overwhelmed? Somebody who has the weight on their shoulders, somebody that feels like they
Yeah,
need to manage every aspect of their organization.
yeah. If you feel overwhelmed, the first thing to do is you need to hire Rising Tide Leadership uh to help you figure that out. Real.
How are people doing this stuff alone? How do we get people to understand?
Yeah. Well, hire somebody to help you do a leadership audit. Right? There's a reason why you are overwhelmed, and that outside help, the consultant, the mentor, the coach can help you do that leadership audit. These are the things that matter. These are the things that don't matter. And then revisit your vision and values. Build everything off of that. Whatever got you to where you're at, if you keep doing the same thing, like you're gonna keep getting the same results. So what can you do differently is the big question, right? How can you build a team? How can you delegate tasks? How can you focus on leadership and focus on your strengths? I think a leadership coach and a mentor will help you do that. So, but the leadership audit, taking a look at where you currently are, what's that vision, what's for the preferred future, and then how do I get there? Yeah, I mean, it seems pretty simple, but we have to talk about this, we can teach this because, we've experienced.
Yeah. Dr. Lem, I'm going to give you the last word.
Yeah. Leadership definitely has its place, but just understand that it's just a lot more than leadership. Put leadership in its right place, and it can be foundational to all the things. But understand that like there's going to be other pieces of that puzzle that you'll need for that organization. And it all starts with the leader. It all starts with you. You, if it all rises and falls on your leadership, and be the one that's proactive about developing your leadership, developing your other abilities so that
Man, I love it. We're going to leave it right there.
it's
Brother, it's
also.
always good to have you on, man. I can't wait for the next one.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for, again, creating these opportunities to just process through these lessons and just think through them and then, share them with folks. And if you guys have any questions, please hit us up in the comments. We're taking a look and we love the conversations that, these episodes are bringing.
Yeah, well, reach out to us. We'd love to come on the journey with you. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening to the Rising Tide Leadership Podcast, Identity and Influence.
Yes, sir. Take care.